Hamilton and the White Pine Mining District ended up an extremely big boom. It started probably in 1868 and was booming through 68, and then by the middle of 1869, the mines were already on a decline. So this enormous population growth occurred in less than 2 years. The Comstock mines in Virginia City were on a decline. The mines in Colorado were doing poorly, had been played out. So everybody was betting on the White Pine Mining District to be the next big mining boom in North America. And so thousands upon thousands of people were coming here.
So there was a stage line that came into Hamilton?
There were 9 stage lines into Hamilton daily in 1869. It's a 115-mile trip from Elko, where people got off the Central Pacific Railroad, which had newly been constructed. And starting off, at first it was about a 25-hour trip for the 115 miles. And they kept whittling it down and this and that, and before you knew it, 15 and a half, 16 hours was common. The economy started crashing by middle of 1869. People were unemployed, had nothing to do, and frequently were milling on the streets. So it wasn't long till they started betting on which stage would hit Hamilton first from Elko. And of course, the stage drivers had to be on the take, or it didn't work.
Oh, okay.
So the stage drivers are trying to get there first, and they're racing, which is why they were doing it in 15 and a half hours. And these are not the beautiful Concorde coaches. Many of them were in what's called a mud wagon with big, heavy leather springs and rough springs. And by the time the passengers arrived in Hamilton, many of them were bruised and battered and had to climb off the stage and spent days recuperating in the Withington Hotel and other hotels before they could venture back out onto the streets.
The limited number of ruins and overwhelming silence seem to be in conflict with the idea of a bustling town full of restless miners and racing wagons. It takes a little imagination to envision when now there's mainly only sagebrush left.
Here we are at the Wells Fargo office. Very few of the buildings do we actually know what they were at this point. I was able to get a Xerox photo of a 1915 photograph that still had Wells Fargo written across the top of the building, and there was a woman out front. It was January of, I believe, 1914 or 15, and she was shoveling snow. It was way over her head, but you could see the building with Wells Fargo on top behind her. My understanding is this is Governor Blaisdell's mill. The governor abandoned his mansion in Carson City and moved here for about 6 months to watch over his enterprises. And, you know, obviously he didn't do very well. All of the mines started to crash in the late 1869. He was probably happy to see it burn down in the fire of 1873. The remains of about 6 beehive, well, I guess we call them beehive ovens, but they were part of the smelting where the charcoal would be superheated to get the ore hot enough that it would be extracted, melted down from the rock. And there were 6 of these. At one time they were completely cone-shaped and closed in with a small hole in the top. And now they've, you know, collapsed down to what you see here now. Well, the red brick building, as we've been told, is the remnants of the Withington Hotel, which was one of the largest and most grand hotels in the entire Great Basin, and maybe other than the West Coast. And it was built in 1869. There are a couple of photographs of it, and it survived the big fire of 1873, and it survived the fires in 1880, 82, and was still used as a hotel through the 1920s.
What happened to it?
Well, after people moved out, it was carted away. Now we're at Eberhard.
How far are we from Treasure City?
Well, I think we drove about 3 miles the way the road runs, but probably only about 1.5 miles, and we dropped about 1,500 feet in elevation.
That's it up there, right?
Right, way up on the mountaintop.
What are we looking at down here?
Well, this is the Stanford Mill. Leland Stanford and his brother developed this mill in 1870. It was a 60 stamp mill, a very, very large mill.
This is the Leland Stanford, who we know of because of Stanford University.
Stanford University. Leland Stanford was one of the big four in the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. Stanford University is named after him, and he was governor of California.
So we shouldn't feel too badly for him that his mill didn't work out too well.
I think he still did okay.
All right.
Are there still remains for the International?
Yeah, let's go over and look.
Okay. I don't see anything else, any foundations for houses or businesses. Was this just milling?
Well, if you look, there's a building foundation down there, and there's another one over here. There were a lot of buildings next to the mill, and there's a cemetery down and around the bend. The International here had no purpose other than milling ore.
So they did that. Hamilton was what, a supply center?
Government, supply, theater, the arts, that sort of thing. Treasure City were the mines, with a few banks and other things to go with it. And then Eberhard and Shermantown were the milling centers.
Okay.
Now, which one was more successful, Eberhard or Shermantown?
Well, neither one are there today, so I guess neither one.
It's a tie.
In actuality, when the International and the Stanford Mill were built, Shermantown dwindled, and within a year it was gone.
Put out of business.
Completely put out of business. So 2,000 people there in 1869, in early 1869, and within a year there were fewer than 200, and within a few years, I think about 25 people.
Wow.
So it just collapsed.
Well, I hope there's enough left for us to see.
Oh, it'll be fun.
The sun is getting low, and it will soon be dark in the canyon, so we decide to return to Eureka for the night. We'll be back early tomorrow to pick up where we left off.
Now we're at the Belmont Mill, which was built about 1925 or 26, and is probably one of the finest examples of a mill and mine dating to that time period in the state of Nevada. The mill and the mines worked lead with a little silver and gold, and probably kept going at least until World War II. The United States had a big need for lead in the 1920s and 40s. It was another upswing in mining here in the White Pine Mining District, a small upswing, and it didn't last very long.
Visiting historic sites like the Ghost Trail can be a fun way of exploring our past. But as Fred and Tom have reminded us on this trip, it is so important to leave them intact and in good condition. That way others will be able to visit and appreciate them.
This building is really teetering on the brink of coming down any time now. There are beams holding it up that hold up the 7th story part up on top that are really just hanging there, and we don't understand why this building is still standing. These 3 big wooden buckets of rocks are the ballasts that are holding the tension on the 2-mile aerial tramway that goes all the way up to the mines.
Wow.
And one of them has been jammed and is hanging sideways. There's no telling how long this building is going to stay up. It's very unnerving. We really recommend that people do not go into this building. It's very unsafe.
Yeah.
They have to have a means of keeping the tension up. As the temperature gets hot and cold, those cables start to sag, and then when it gets cold, they get taut again. So they had to keep a way to keep the tension on the cables that are running for a long distance up.